It's the middle of May. It feels chilly out there. It's not even spring yet, but no, this is just a prop. I'm just wearing this because, one second. It's been long overdue. It's time to unpack this. Let's get it. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another edition of the vlog. Today, we're gonna unpack what's emblazoned across my chest. That's right, I am new media. Or is it, am I new media? Considering I've been doing this for over 23 years in some way, shape, or form, dating back to 2001 to 2008, when I volunteered my services for a community center in the South Bronx called The Point. Thursday nights, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m., 1 hour sports talk, wasn't two-way, where I have a lot of the proof on audio cassette. That's right, go back to audio cassette, people. I'm sure the Gen Zers and the millennials won't recall what those are. Big shout out to my guy, Dr. Craig Tyndall, for hooking me up there at The Point. Then from 2008 to 2013, actually June of 2008, I pivoted to internet radio, thanks to my former boss, John Tishner, for cluing me in on trying to venture out and do something that was, at the time, I thought was almost groundbreaking. To be able to host my own show at home from a landline, not only talking sports, but also taking calls where I could actually get guests, man, that just blew my mind. And then just a couple months after that, my blood, my cousin, my relative JD joined forces with me to host a 2-hour sports talk show at the time when it was yours truly, it was just an hour. Wednesday, 8 to 10, two-way sports talk, radio, as well as having guests, as well as just being able to not even take a break, to bounce ideas, to bounce storylines and everything off one another, to the point where we became one of the top shows on Blog Talk Radio. And obviously being a top sports show was near and dear to my heart, and it was huge because I thought that probably could have taken us to places, to heights unknown. But then what happened in 2013, unfortunately I was going through some personal issues in life, and therefore I put my Blog Talk Radio career to rest. But that was all right, because in 2015, thanks to the powers that be, or maybe even the universe for that matter, I was filling in sparingly 1240 AM Sports Talk Radio out in Long Island, West Babylon, New York, where I filled in from 8 to 9 or 9 to 10 on Sunday nights. And even though, shout out to Rob Kowal, the program director, who I know with his persistence and patience still contacts me to this day. But because that was sparingly, and on top of that, because I live in the Bronx and I was out in Long Island, and with the way my schedule was, it's kind of difficult to pick up a shift, even if I was given 2 or 3 weeks notice. But still, great experience, being able to have a two-way sports talk format, and also have guests as well. Kenny Skywalker, the former slam dunk champion, New York Knicks, Kentucky Wildcat. Yes, that Kenny Skywalker. And being able to spread my wings even further. But then the true pivot came March 1st, 2018, where I launched and now continue to host more than 460 episodes in the J Rose podcast. And now it brings me to this moment. And these 4 words, once again, I am new media. And of course, I am a part of the new media, and I'll have to define that for some clarity there for those who don't understand. To me, new media is the person like myself, or someone that did not go the conventional route of schooling, whether it's majoring in journalism or communications at an institution like Northwestern or Syracuse University, but it's the blogger, it's the guy like myself who have been a sports talking head for the longest, or even the current or former athlete who may have gotten a little bit of training along the way, but certainly, again, not that guy that has the 4-year degree, that had covered women's badminton or men's water polo or single A baseball or even the XFL or any league or sport that's certainly at the bottom rung where you have to work your way up to the top to get that major league job. And with that, I have to talk about old media before I even get to the new. So as I reel that in, old media, of course, being those guys and gals that have gone through the ranks, whether it was through a university and then having to pay their dues and work their way up to the job that they so long to aspire, and then finally get there to become renowned in their field, whether it was by newspaper or even magazine print, or now in this day and age with a lot of these websites, the Bleacher Reports, and all these different sites that I really even look at or follow. The Athletic does come to mind, that's another one, although they were brought up by the New York Times, but you understand where I'm coming from. So to have that person who, of course, has been in these rooms, the locker rooms, behind the scenes, etc., where someone like myself, I've only been in that environment only a smattering of times, with yes, a couple of side eyes in the process. And I could get why they would feel as me not having the reputation or not being a person that is maybe not persona non grata, but they may, in their eyes, look at me as an interloper. But I know that I could hang in those rooms with those people because I know sports and I put in my 10,000 hours times 3 to the point where I could talk to and rap with anybody with what's going on in the world of sports. So that was something that didn't bother me, but I know the old media looks at a guy like myself as almost as if, what are you doing here? You don't belong. Let me see your credentials. Let me see what you've been through, who you've written for, what you've done. All right, well, 23 years behind the scenes doing what it is that I've done, I understand may not account to much in those people's eyes, but I know for me, it surely does. And I will say this, to that old media person, who I'm sure loved sports growing up, but maybe couldn't swing a bat or didn't really throw a ball well or picked last on their wiffle ball teams or certainly in a pickup basketball game wasn't even chosen because they feel like, hey, they didn't have the athletic ability. Now listen, I'm not trying to make myself out to be Mr. Hall of Famer by any stretch, but Lord knows, I played sports, love playing sports, I even play sports to this day. And even though I never played collegiately or even professionally, but I tell you this, I am no scrub. So with that being said, because those guys maybe weren't the most gifted athletically and therefore found their outlet in writing sports, God bless them. And I'm sure that that's the case, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I don't belong in a room based on what you've done throughout the course of your life as opposed to what I've done to get to this point. And believe you me, I didn't take the leap of faith more than 3 months ago to get into this just for the hell of it. No, I'm planning a building block here. This is the first few steps. And by putting out this video, I felt it was important, not only for me, but also for those out there that are like me, trying to get in where they fit in, to try to get their lane and to try to be a part of this landscape. And one thing I will say, just like the former NFL cornerback, Ray Crockett, Detroit Lions, even the Denver Broncos, I got the skills to make mills, baby. And granted, I haven't started even making close to anything but mills, but I know my day and time is coming. Now fast forward to new media, as constituted a few minutes ago. Now I know by the day it's continuing to be littered with former and current athletes trying to do their thing, trying to get in where they fit in as well, in order to, I'm sure, make a name for themselves as well as make money, because isn't that what everybody else out there wants to do and plans to do? 100%. Yours truly, hands raised high in the air. I'm with you guys. I certainly am. And even though I've never graced professionally as an athlete in a locker room or on a team playing or in the throes of a key playoff series or a big game status, none of that. I understand that I will never be anything close or even relate to what the athlete who are starting to make their way into this profession to even try to compete with them in that regard. Now, the fact is, I always wanted to be that when I was a boy. My dream was to be center fielder of the New York Mets, but obviously that didn't happen. And even throughout high school, when I played baseball and made travel teams down in Florida, of course, my focus wasn't 100% on my schoolwork and being focused to be a professional baseball player. But did sports ever leave me? Hell no. However, despite all the accolades and despite all the success and the money that these athletes have made on the field, whether they're currently playing or not, there is an integrity that's involved when it comes to having their platform and having a voice and a say as to what's going on, especially in this particular case, when it comes down to sports. But let me further explain. When it comes to the former athlete or current athlete, there's a code. And we all know that there's a lot that's been said, there's a lot that could be even communicated amongst their peers and amongst their former brethren to where they know privately they can expound on certain things that had happened on the court, off the court, whatever. And that's fine. We understand that as fans, like myself, we're not privy to that. We can only be blessed to speak with players like that who will be willing to open up and discuss those things and even trust us with that information. And Lord knows, I'm in this business not to be a TMZ. I'm not trying to out anybody or have an agenda. I just watch the games, I watch what goes on, I watch what's happening behind the scenes from afar, and all I could do is just share my opinion with nothing but the best credibility, as well as being entertaining, as well as being engaging, opinionated, etc. That's all I've ever done. That's all I ever want to do. Nothing more, nothing less. So I don't have it out for anybody that's out there. But I do call it like I see it. So when it comes to that code, very rarely will those players or those particular people who have their platforms will touch on something that's going to be rather sensitive, or let's just say it's a touchy subject. And yes, they may ask about it or they may say something or whatever, but they don't expound on it. They don't really get into and massage maybe what the crux of that question should be to get the answer that us fans. And that's what these channels, platforms, podcasts, etc. are geared to. I'm going to give you 3 examples of just that. Number 1, if I was ever fortunate to be blessed to sit across from Kevin Garnett, yes, that Kevin Garnett, Minnesota Timberwolves, world champion Boston 2008, my beloved Celtics, of course played for the Brooklyn Nets, back to Minnesota, etc. Everybody loves KG. He is one of very few throughout the history of the NBA has played with so much passion, fire, it's written across his chest, it's in his blood and DNA, as I like to say. And for him just to be able to feel his passion, and I've seen him in interviews with other former players, when you're just looking at how animated he is and you just see how he's into it when it comes to answering these questions, I love it. I can't get enough of it. But of course, when it's player to player, and when there's one question that I'm sure a lot of fans want to know about, and again, players aren't willing to break that code, I would love to ask KG, true or false, Honey Nut Cheerios? And yes, I get it that is sensitive, that's touchy. Cheerios, how could you go there? You're not a player, you don't know any better. How dare you ask him something like that? Why can't I ask him? Of course, KG could just tell me no, I'm not gonna answer it. Or he could be like, next question. And at that point, then you could pretty much speculate or even generate an opinion based on his answer to think that, well, maybe this is true. Because if he came out and said, nah, it never happened, I didn't say that, and then maybe I could ask, what did you say, KG? And if he says, nah, I'm not gonna go there, next question, all right, I'll leave it as it is. But if he said, no, I never said that, then I gotta take his word for it. But if he's just going to deflect, or if he's just gonna say, I don't wanna get into that right now, whatever, I'm sure we can come to the conclusion of what the answer was. Number 2, I recently watched an interview with former NBA point guard Stephon Marbury, Coney Island's finest right here in New York City. In this interview with another former player, and also someone who I've watched over the years, who is with this former player as hosts of their particular podcast. And it was brought up about Stephon Marbury's latter tenure in his NBA career, especially when he played for the Knicks, and how bitter the ending was considering his return to New York, and no, not New Jersey in 1999, but when he came to New York in the early 2000s, I believe 2003 off the top of my head, and for him to be a part of Madison Square Garden, the Mecca, New York City. This was the homecoming that I'm sure every Knicks fan would just dream of, knowing that Stephon is gonna play in the Garden. New York City point guard. We know how point guards grew on trees here in New York City, dating back to the 60s. But for Marbury to not have a good tenure here as a member of the Knicks, feuding with Larry Brown, the off-the-court stuff with Isaiah Thomas, who dealt with his own issues off the court, as we all know, and him being tied into that, Stephon Marbury, that wasn't brought up. Nothing about the intern of the former employee at Madison Square Garden that allegedly Isaiah Thomas was involved with, and then this particular intern, not that they have to get into names, not that they have to get into specifics, but because that was a part of his bitter ending, why wasn't that brought up? Why wasn't that discussed? And I get it, player to player, but with the other host to the side chiming in, and I did watch the interview, but nothing was really brought up as to what happened there in those final few days as a Knick or on his way out, as he had to make a pivot on his career, considering he had a lot of success in the NBA with Minnesota, Jersey, and not so much with John Calipari, but then having a rebirth in Phoenix before coming to New York. And it was a thing where it wasn't really talked about. And as fans, that's a part of Stephon Marbury's story. We need to know that. We need to unpack that. And yes, it was implied as far as what had gone down at the Garden and what happened there off the court. They did not go into the weeds of what went down there so we could get a better understanding as to what really happened. And that was so long ago that I don't think that there would be any legal process involved. But as fans, these are the things that we want to know, or at least I want to know. And one more time, those guys that had Marbury on their podcast, I respect not 100%, 1,000%. How could I not? One guy grew up in the Bronx, another guy born in Brooklyn, had a great NBA career, and yes, I know you see the graphic at the bottom there, if you're paying attention, but my thing is that if you're gonna have somebody like that on your sofa or as a guest, to me, there shouldn't be anything left unsaid. Bring it all out. If it gets answered, great. If it doesn't, maybe it gets chopped and put on the cutting room floor, or who knows? Maybe Marbury would expound on it and it becomes even bigger news, because to this day, we don't really truly fully know what happened with that whole situation. And number 3, and this person I'll call out, and not that I got anything against him, even though he did burn my football team back in 1997 in the AFC Championship game. I can remember it as if it was yesterday. 3rd and 6, deep in Steeler territory. John Elway is the quarterback in the great old venerable Three River Stadium. How Elway completed the pass to Shannon Sharp. First down, game was over. Steelers were not able to win that game to go on to a Super Bowl. I'll leave it at that. But for Shannon Sharp, who I get it, Skip Bayless, now at First Take, doing his own thing, has his own channel and his own show there on YouTube. I don't need to get into it. You guys and gals, I'm sure, know pretty well. But for Shannon Sharp to get into this back and forth, I guess this now recent, not rap battle, but maybe you want to call it host battle, considering the whole Drake-Kendrick Lamar thing over the last couple of weeks. But for Shannon Sharp, and I get it, he was speaking his mind, he was being outspoken in reference to Shaq when interviewing Nikola Jokic on TNT as he won his 3rd MVP in 4 years, and how Shaq even said to Jokic that he feels that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the great point guard of the Oklahoma City Thunder, should have been the MVP, and how Shannon Sharp took umbrage to that. Like, how are you going to ask that? To me, that was uncalled for. And I'm paraphrasing here because I don't have the quotes in front of me. But for Sharp to call out Shaq and to say that he's probably bitter, or he feels as if he has to come out and say that because he's not amongst the ranks of the all-time great centers, whether your name is Will Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Hakeem Olajuwon. You want to throw in Nikola Jokic? Shaq, I'm with you, my G. I think you're one of the all-time greats. Maybe not with your fellow Walt Chamberlain-Easy, Kareem, Bill Russell, but you're a couple of notches below. But with that being said, then Shaq came out and obviously put Shannon Sharp to rest as far as his comments, because I haven't heard, as of right this second, this recording on this date. I don't know if Shannon Sharp retorted or if there was a comeback of any way, shape, or form. But the bottom line is that for Sharp to come out and say that, and I don't know if that was just clickbait. I think even Shaq made a reference to that. And for Sharp, you should know better. And I get it. He didn't go the unconventional route, and he was outspoken and he spoke his mind, which is a good thing. And you want to see that when it comes to people who have this type of platform. But at the same time, did he do it because he really meant it? Or did he do it because he knew it was going to generate clickbait? It was going to generate interest, considering that over the last few weeks, because of the interviews that he's gotten on his platform, that he's really blown up. And I'm not going to cut him to ribbons. I'll just leave it at that. I've seen a couple of his interviews. Kudos to you, Shannon. I hope you have continued success in what you're doing. But that's a case of new media maybe being not as responsible as they should have, or maybe not thinking this through to see, maybe not thinking that he was going to get this type of backlash, but at the same time, look what it got him. It got him in the fury of one of the all-time greats. And Shannon Sharp, although he's a Hall of Fame tight end in his own right, but if you're going to level out Shannon Sharp, sorry, Shaq's up here, Shannon's down here when it comes to their sports and what they did in their respective leagues. So now let me land this plane and just throw in a couple of words here just to make sense of all this, and especially when it pertains to yours truly. Again, I mentioned earlier that I've taken the leap, leaving corporate America, a safe job with benefits, vacation, etc., where I felt unchallenged. I was at a point where I didn't want to do it anymore. I wanted to do something that was going to burn inside of me, something that I know that I'm super passionate about, and of course, I want to make a living doing. And this is why I've made this pivot. This is why I've done what I've done, especially over the last 3 months, in creating and producing content. And how I look at it is that I'm going to be persistent. I'm going to continue to challenge myself. And with the help of you guys and gals to get the word out, it's gonna go a long way in me becoming that household name. But before I even get to that, I wanna go back to the passion. I've been a sports fan since birth. Again, in the blood, in the DNA, I say that at the end of every one of my podcasts. And I talked about the 10,000 hours. I've watched, read, followed, played sports pretty much, it seems like every waking moment of my life. And I mean that because there isn't a day that goes by that I'm checking to see what's happening with scores, news, trades, rumors, etc. There isn't really a second that goes by. If you don't believe me, ask my wife or any of my friends. They could certainly vouch for me. And considering it's been 23 years that I've done this isn't something that is a hobby or something that is just, I'm doing this for fun. No, I'm trying to carve a path here. I'm trying to get my lane and blaze my trail to be a guy that is not only, as I said, informative, entertaining, creative, as well as most importantly, being credible and honest and opinionated, because nobody wants somebody that's not gonna be any of those things above, because who's gonna watch? So I take this craft seriously. I know that if I'm in the room with some of these bigwigs or people that I know that have been well esteemed and well known in their profession over the years, whether it is a writer, a studio host, a blogger, you name it, athlete, I'm just gonna go in as humble, but at the same time, be a guy that's gonna try to rub elbows and try to be a mover and shaker and not just hang out in the background and feel like I don't belong or, I don't know what to do. Only live one life, baby. I gotta go all in like I've done over the last 3 months and putting all of my ability and betting on myself 100% to the point where, yes, when that opportunity comes, I'm going to not knock on that door, I'm gonna bash it through that door. And to me, I'm just halfway home. I feel like my direct deposit is just waiting for that day and time to come where I can start to cash in. And again, it's not even about the money, people, because I understand that in this industry, it's not like I'm looking to be a millionaire, zillionaire. If you give me the same income that I got in my previous job and do what I do because I love to do it, your boy is all set. But I digress. I'm here to speak my truth. And based on what it is that I see, I'm not gonna start trouble. I'm not going to look for those angles, those agendas, those things that I mentioned earlier. But if there's something that I see and there's something that I like, I'll bring it up. And if there's something I don't like, I'm certainly gonna bring that up too. I gotta call it like I see it. What people don't understand is that I live for this. I was born to do this. Again, 10,000 hours, everything I talked about, 23 years, it's all adding up to this. 460 episodes of my podcast, everything that happened before that. You wanna talk about me paying my dues for 23 years? I think I've done that. Now it's time to reap the benefits. And there's no hate or jealousy toward anybody else. I don't care if somebody like myself started at the same time and now have a zillion subscribers on YouTube, or they have 8 zillion downloads, whatever. Kudos to any guy and gal shooting their shot, doing their thing. I'm rooting for everyone to win. Even as I mentioned earlier with Shannon Sharp. And we all know that he's had a very esteemed career prior to what he's doing now. But my point is that I just want what's coming to me as well. I know I put in the time, the effort, and I gotta continue to do that. There's no days off. I can't put my feet up, but that's all right, because I want all this smoke. This is why I made the leap. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing now, because I love to do it. No regrets, going all in. As long as I'm alive and breathing, you gotta drag me off this microphone or in front of this camera in order to stop me from doing what it is that I love. And best believe, people, I am not going anywhere. My voice has been heard, and it will continue to be heard as I continue to move up those ranks to get to wherever it is that I wanna go. I have no doubt that I'll succeed in this medium in some way, shape, or form. And I want you, everybody out there watching, to know that no matter what day, what time, how many podcasts I put out, how many live streams, how many vlogs, etc., I will continue to deliver the fire, passion, energy, fury with my thoughts, opinions, critiques, praise, analysis, feelings on anything and everything that happens on the world of the diamond, ice, gridiron, hardwood, golf course, racetrack, tennis court, boxing ring, octagon, you name it. From my lips to your ears, from my heart to your soul, from where I am to wherever you are, yours truly will always come correct, direct, and in full effect. The shirt says it all.